Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I'm with Professor Badri Narayan, Director of the G.V. Pant Social Sciences Institute in Allahabad, and Dr. Makarand Paranjape, Director of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shamla. Gentlemen, welcome to the Print Debates.
Thank you.
So today we are discussing the new team in the RSS, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. About a week ago in Bengaluru, the RSS's top decision-making body, the Akhil Bharatiya Pratinidhi Sabha, has elected Mr. Dattatreya Hosabale as the new General Secretary of the Sangh. He's called the Sarkaryava. The Sarsang Chalak, which is the head of the organization, remains Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, but Mr. Hosabale will, in effect, lead the team, will lead this huge organization, which has a very, very close relationship with the ruling party in power, the BJP. We all know that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been associated with the Sangh, with the RSS since he was 18 years old. He was a pracharak when he was a younger man. Of course, he's Prime Minister of India today. But to discuss this, I would like to I would first like to get Mr. Paranjape, your views on the new team led by Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, of course, but by Mr. Dattatreya Hosabale.
Right. So, of course, Dattaji has been at the forefront of the Sangh for a very long time. He's been the Sah Sarkaryava, which is like the joint secretary, one of the 6 joint secretaries for a while. And even 3 years ago, actually these elections take place every 3 years. And I think that's the first thing to remember, that 1,500 members of this Akhil Bharatiya Parishad of the Sangh, Pratinidhi Parishad of the Sangh, they get together and there's a decision-making process which is mostly by consensus. In fact, unless there's unanimity, there's no resolution that can be passed. So this year, 2 resolutions were passed. We'll come to that. But as to the new team, first of all, Dattaji has become the secretary, which is the Sarkaryava. We've got a new Sah Sarkaryava, joint secretary, in Shri Arun Kumarji, who was the head of the Prachar wing earlier. And that position has been taken by Sunil Ambekarji. And in addition to that, Ram Madhavji, who is very closely associated with the present regime, has come back to the RSS. So there's been a number of these changes. Now, when it comes to Dattaji, the normal way that people have looked at it is that he's a progressive face. He came not through the RSS route, but through the lateral entry, because he joined the RSS after being associated with ABVP for a while.
Right.
That may be true, but the point I want to make is simply that people on the outside do not, I think, properly understand, and I think Badriji may bear me out here, how the RSS works. So at one level, anybody can go to a shakha. Anyone can see how they function.
Right.
At another level, it's very difficult to penetrate into its inner workings.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't claim to have done so. My real point is this, that people on the outside perceive a huge change. I don't. I see a continuity in the RSS vision and mission. Right from the start, from 1925, right, when Dr. Keshav Baliram Hedgewar started this organization, till today. What has happened is that the RSS has shown its adaptability. When the circumstances change, RSS changes.
Right.
So previous, I just finished in a second, a previous Sarsanga Chalakji, whom I shall not immediately name, even said that India's great leader was Indira Gandhi. Mm-hmm. Even though she imposed emergency, many people went to jail, many RSS people went to jail. So the RSS is adaptive, and the point I'm trying to make is now that they have, I think, penetrated into all walks of life and society and are mentoring, or if not mentoring, at least supporting the ruling party, they don't need to be so combative, so defensive, so closeted or hemmed in. But so now they want to attract a new generation of people and they want to mainstream themselves. And in this process, Dattaji, I think, is a very important figure in this transition.
Now, Badri ji, what do you think? आप मुझे बताइए, आप मुझे ये समझाइए कि ये जो नई टीम आई है आज की तारीख में, इस बात को करीब एक हफ्ता हुआ है, तो आप मुझे ये समझाइए कि ये क्या बदलाव आया है आरएसएस के अंदर इस नई टीम की वजह से।
देखिए, नई टीम पूरी नई नहीं है, उसमें कुछ नए चेहरे हैं और जो हैं वो पुराने ही हैं। और जैसा इसमें क्या है, इस टीम का नेचर है पुनर्नवा, बार बार पुराना लेकिन बार बार नया होना। तो दत्ता जी का आना, उसमें एक लक्षण, एक इंडिकेटर है उस पुनर्नवा होने का। दत्ता जी ऑलरेडी 4 लोगों में जो रहे हैं, जॉइंट सेक्रेटरीज कहते हैं हम लोग मॉडर्न लैंग्वेज में, उसमें रहे हैं, क्योंकि उस संघ की भाषा में याद रखना भी मुश्किल होता है और कहना भी मुश्किल होता है, तो उसमें वो रहे हैं, तो वो ऑलरेडी पार्ट ऑफ दैट टीम रहे हैं। लेकिन दत्ता जी के साथ मकरंद जी टोल्ड, नो, ही इज नॉट इन दैट वे संघाइट्स, नॉट ट्रेंड संघाइट्स, वो बाद में आए। तो और वो जो है, उन्होंने बहुत जो एक मॉडर्न सोशल कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी जो पैदा हो रही है भारतीय समाज में, स्पेशली आफ्टर 90s, पोस्ट 90s इंडिया जो बनी है लिबरलाइजेशन के बाद, ग्लोबलाइजेशन के बाद, तो नई सोशल कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज जो पैदा हुई है, दत्ता जी इज क्वाइट कॉम्पिटेंट टू रिस्पॉन्ड दैट, और उन्होंने रिस्पॉन्ड किया है। जैसे
रिस्पॉन्ड कर रहे हैं इन नई चेंजेस को लेकर।
जैसे मैं आपको बताऊं, ट्रांसजेंडर का इशू था, सब लोग बहुत वो वॉच कर रहे थे कि संघ कैसे इसको हैंडल करता है, बट बहुत आगे आके, जैसे कहते हैं ना, बैट्समैन आगे खेलता है, दत्ता जी आगे आकर के उन्होंने मैच खेला और उसको उन्होंने बहुत साफ किया। वैसे ही इकोलॉजी का सवाल है, बहुत सारे जो वीमेन के क्वेश्चंस हैं, जो बहुत सारे ऐसे सोशल क्वेश्चंस हैं जो मॉडर्निटी की, एग्रेसिव मॉडर्निटी के बाई प्रोडक्ट है। और संघ अगर एक स्टीरियोटाइपिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन होता तो शायद हैंडल नहीं कर सकता था, फेल हो जाता, लेकिन संघ ने कॉम्पिटेंटली उसको फेस किया है। दैट शोज कि एक न्यू आरएसएस विद इन द आरएसएस इज इमर्जिंग, और न्यू आरएसएस भले ही फाउंडेशनल न्यू ना हो, लेकिन फॉर्म के लेवल पर, और कहते हैं ना, जो अभी मकरंद जी ने बहुत कहा कि एडेप्टेबिलिटी, एकोमोडेशन एंड एडेप्टेबिलिटी, ये 2 स्ट्रेंथ है संघ की, जोड़ते जाना और जुड़ते जाना, और उसके लिए अपने को फैलाते जाना, उसके लिए अपने को विस्तार करते जाना, तो ऑलवेज रीडिफाइन देमसेल्फ, क्योंकि आपको किसी को जोड़ने के लिए यू नीड टू रीडिफाइन योरसेल्फ। अगर आप रीडिफाइन नहीं करेंगे तो आप बहुत फिक्स्ड, रिजिड और वो हो जाएंगे। तो संघ ऑलवेज रीडिफाइन इटसेल्फ। कैन सी द क्वेश्चन ऑफ वेरियस क्वेश्चंस,
जी,
नई परिभाषाएं।
तुमने, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगी मकरंद कि आप, जैसे अभी बद्री जी ने कहा कि संघ इज ऑलवेज ट्राइंग टू रीडिफाइन इटसेल्फ, बट द क्वेश्चन इज दैट जस्ट बिकॉज Mr. Hosabale or other leaders in the Sangh said that, okay, Section 377 should go, and that India is ready for gay couples, for example, that homosexuality is all right. Now, that doesn't mean, or that only doesn't mean, that the Sangh is a modern, progressive organization. Is that the litmus test for being modern and progressive?
Of course, the point is they don't quite say what you think they say. They are not saying homosexuality is all right. They don't quite say that. But listen, the point is this, that we mostly, you call us Lutyens, Delhi, Khan Market, whatever these pejoratives be, whether they are accurate or not.
Is it a pejorative?
Well, if you say Lutyens, लूटना भी एक उसमें अर्थ आता है, उसके अंतर्निहित वो एक अर्थ आता है कि ये लूटने वाले लोग हैं जिन्होंने पीढ़ी जात कुछ अपने privileges कायम किए हैं. Let's not get into that. The point I'm really making is there's a notion in a certain English sacred class of India that the Sangh is a very conservative and backward-looking organization. Nothing can be farther than the truth. My understanding of the Sangh is that it actually comes at the tail end of the Indian social and religious reform movements of the Indian Renaissance. It comes right at the end of it, and it's a reformist organization because right from the beginning, they are for women's rights, they are anti-caste in terms of trying to encourage, let's say, sections of society which have been left out, and they're still pro-reservations, among other things. And as Badriji said, they want to seek new constituencies. They want to reach every section of Indian society. Look at their outreach to the Matuas, the so-called Namo Shudras. You see, it's a very powerful outreach. So the Sangh is a reformist organization. The reason it's been dubbed as reactionary is because of the, as it were, phobia of Hindu consolidation among the secularist, socialist, minoritarian, Nehruvian consensus class. I mean, it's a complicated sentence, but the fact is, when you have 82% people supposedly Hindu, the thing that you're afraid of is what if even 60 of these 82% get together, you've got an unwinnable bandwidth, you've got an unwinnable vote bank. And that's why, you give a dog a bad name to hang it. There's been this tremendous demonization of the Sangh, and it still continues. But people haven't understood it. There used to be armies roaming around in Bihar. You look at Kerala, you look at Bengal. By extra-constitutional, I mean that there are forces which are let loose at times to do policing, to do other activities which are not entirely possible if you stick to your own elements. For example, there are no-go villages in Kerala. You can't enter those villages unless you've got permission. There are no-go areas in cities, even
So
Delhi.
how are you connecting this with the relationship between the Sangh and its fringe elements like the Bajrang Dal and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad?
My point is that all these elements are very much a part of the political spectrum in India, and that there is some sort of understanding about how these things work. So it's not that there's some people running amok all on their own. No, I think all powerful political parties and bosses have these elements, and they use them in a manner that they consider necessary. And again, Badriji will know better, but if you go on the ground, everybody knows. If you take out one of ours, we'll take out one of yours. You go to North Kerala, you go to Bengal, many of these things are tacitly understood. And it's not just about the BJP. This is understood, UP used to be run by dons. And even still, there's so much lawlessness. So
you're accepting that the Sangh has control over, mob elements, whether it's in the Vishwa Hindu Parishad or in the Bajrang Dal or other fringe organizations.
No, I'm not quite saying that. I'm only saying that all these elements are a part of a larger spectrum.
Okay.
That is a part of the reality of what we call the Indian polity. That's what I'm saying. So never are these things going to be condoned. But at the same time, I think that when scores need to be settled, people on the ground know that they can't get away, with bumping off some people and Gundaraj, which used to happen. I mean, certain communities were well armed or were well.
It's an eye for an eye, basically.
Well, I've said that Gandhiji said an eye for an eye will leave us blind. But at the same time, if you tie your hands behind yourself and enter into a fist fight on the street, you're going to get knocked down. So I think the Sangh, if you ask me honestly, has a more pragmatic understanding of these matters and is not as idealistic as possibly Bapu was. But I feel that they understood, if you ask me, they've understood that even if, so to speak, a certain kind of violent option was the demand of the times during the independence struggle, now that they're in power, that's not an option. You have to uphold constitutionality now. And I'm not saying this on my own. It's the Sir Sangachalak ji who said it at the release of the Dharampal volume and Gandhiji's volume, which MD Srinivas and Jitendra ji edited and released a few days ago, where they talked about Gandhi, as a as a Hindu patriot. That is the title of the book. I've seen the book. And so the point I'm trying to make is, and this is really the important point, if you have to understand the Sangh's psyche, you've got to go back to the 1920s. And I think that people in the Sangh who founded the Sangh, along with a bunch of other people, felt that their interests, or the interests of the majority, or the interests of the Hindus, were not safe with the Congress. They felt that some other arrangement was required because there was going to be a bloodbath. And I think Savarkar realized this very early. Because till 1909, when he wrote the first Indian War of Independence, he was also talking about Hindu-Muslim unity. Something happened to him in the Andamans, and after, when he came out, he
Right.
said these are two nations, echoing what, to some extent, Sayyid Ahmad Khan and others had already said. The Khilafat happened, so many things happened. And I think the Sangh has an independent view of these matters. They believe in the idea that India is a Hindu nation, but their idea of Hindu is inclusive and not exclusive. But they will not give up the idea of the Hindu nation. That is very important to understand. That's in their DNA. That's hardwired. So if you say, let's all be happy Indians, don't mention the word Hindu, no, they will not agree. They will say, this is a Hindu Rashtra, a Hindu nation, but by Hindu nation, we don't mean the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. That's not our idea of the Hindu nation.
Do you
That's
mean the Hindu Republic of India?
No, I don't think they mean that. They don't see Hindu, as Badriji said, defined by some catechism, some kalma, or some covenant with a special deity or with a prophet. They don't see Hindu as a theological term. They see Hindu as a cultural, civilizational term, and they don't want to give up on that Hindu identity.
Badriji, the question to you is the relationship between the RSS and the BJP. Like I said earlier, and we all know that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was a pracharak since he was a young adult at age 18. He's very influenced by the Sangh. Not just him, Amit Shah, the Home Minister, arguably the second most powerful man in the country, was very closely associated with the ABVP. For several years, and in fact, Mr. Dattatreya Hosabale was the General Secretary of the ABVP, which is the Students' Union of the Sangh. And I have some figures for you, Badriji. 1 out of 5 BJP MPs who have been appointed a minister in the Narendra Modi government has its roots in the Sangh. And if you compare it with those who have not been in the Sangh, that's 1:14. यानी 5 MPs में से 1 MP को मंत्री बना गया है इस सरकार के अंदर. और हम एक और फिगर है मेरे पास, out of 53 ministers in the government, 38 ministers have a Sangh background. आज की तारीख में मैं आपसे पूछूंगी, बहुत सारे जैसे इलेक्शंस हो रहे हैं, बंगाल में, आसाम में, पौंडीचेरी, तमिलनाडु, केरल में इलेक्शंस हैं. How is the Sangh going to impact these elections in these 5 states and union territory?
देखिए, हमने जो देखा है कि ग्रासरूट, मैं कह रहा हूँ कि ऑफिशियल संघ ऊपर से क्या करता है वो मैं आपको बहुत नहीं बता सकता, वो वहाँ के लोग बता सकते हैं. लेकिन मैंने देखा है कि जो लोकल कैडर होते हैं संघ के, वो जब चुनाव होते हैं तो उसमें बहुत बड़ी भूमिका निभाते हैं. वो भूमिका 3 तरह से निभाते हैं. एक, पर्सुएसिव एजेंसी के रूप में क्या करते हैं कि जो आपसी जो डेमोक्रेसी इलेक्शन जो है बहुत सारे की यूनिटी पैदा करती है, जो पार्टी में भी होता है, वो उसको समाप्त करते हैं. लोगों को एक समझाना बुझाना, इसमें संघ के लोग बहुत दक्ष होते हैं, तो वो वहां पे काम करते हैं. दूसरा जो मैंने देखा है कि जो लोग जो शिफ्टिंग बोर्ड जिसको कहते हैं, जो अपना मन नहीं बनाए रहते,
सेफ्टी,
चाय वाले, पोंछे वाले, ठेले वाले, दुकान वाले, पान वाले, उनको एक खास तरह से उनको कन्विंस करना, वो करते हुए. तीसरा, फीडबैक एजेंसी. जैसे मैंने 14 के इलेक्शन में डॉक्यूमेंट किया था कि मैं जो कह रहा हूँ कि मेरा तरीका है बाहर से देखने का, भीतर से मेरे पास कोई सोर्स है ना कॉन्टैक्ट है, बाहर से मैं देखता हूँ. तो मैंने देखा है कि जब भी मोदी जी की रैली होती थी, रैली के बाद 8-10 लोग होते थे जो लोगों से पूछ रहे होते थे कि मोदी जी ने जो ये कहा उसके बाद क्या आपका रिएक्शन है, इनडायरेक्टली, बहुत ही पर्सुएसिव वे में. एंड दे यूज्ड टू कलेक्ट दोज इनपुट्स. अब वो संघ के कार्डर्स होते थे अपने अपनी तरह से. संघ का कार्डर उस तरह से नहीं होता है जैसे हमारी
तो एक हुआ पर्सुएसिव.
संघ में अगर आप शाखा में गए तो आप हैं कार्डर उसके, आपको कोई मेंबर होने की जरूरत नहीं है, तो यू कैन क्लेम और नॉट क्लेम, लेकिन दे आर पार्ट ऑफ द संघ ऑर्बिट इन ब्रॉडर सेंस, एंड दे वर्क फॉर द बीजेपी के इस तरह से. दूसरा है बूथ मैनेजमेंट. वॉर रूम्स जो होते हैं, लोकल वॉर रूम्स, जो पॉलिसी जहाँ पर कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, उनमें भी इनकी बड़ी भूमिका होती है. लेकिन मैं ये नहीं कहता कि वो प्रचारक होगा, वो जो कर रहा होगा वो जिला प्रचारक हो या विभाग प्रचारक हो, ये नहीं कहा जा सकता। हो सकता है वो ऐसे लोग हों जो संघ के शाखा में भी जाते हों, कहीं और भी जाते हों, बट दे आर पार्ट ऑफ द ऑर्बिट ऑफ द संघ कल्चर एंड दे वर्क फॉर द विक्ट्री ऑफ द। एक दूसरा क्या करते हैं, मैंने ये देखा है कि संघ अपनी सोशल कैंपेन से एक रिसोर्स प्रोड्यूस करता है, जिस रिसोर्स को बीजेपी आफ्टर सम टाइम पिकअप करके अपनी पॉलिटिक्स में यूज करती है।
फॉर एग्जाम्पल
जैसे सुहलदेव का जो मिथ है यहाँ जो बहराइच में।
let me come to you, Makarand, and this is the last question that I have. If we just come back to Mr. Dattatreya Hosabale, and he seems to be quite an interesting character because he speaks several languages. He speaks Kannada, which is his native language. Apart from that, he's done a master's in English literature, so I suppose he speaks English fluently, I imagine. Then there is Hindi and Tamil. Now, this face of the Sangh, which is somebody who's got sort of both a hard and a soft face, perhaps somebody who speaks many languages, is comfortable with social media. In fact, at this Bengaluru meeting, he said that because of the pandemic, people could not go to their shakhas, so we adopted a new strategy. And through the use of social media, people were able to reach out, pracharaks and other.
Absolutely. I think that I'd like to underscore something that Badriji said, which suggests the fecundity of the Sangh imaginary. What we call Srijan Shakti. They have 10 million followers, they have hundreds of organizations. And suppose they decide that we need a particular organization, maybe they already have one, for transgenders. They'll get it going in a month. So, what I'm trying to say is that when I look at Dattaji's elevation to the, if not CEO, the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, so to speak, it's a part of a new synergy between the BJP and the Sangh, which ties in with Modi's vision of a new India. You see, what happens is that you asked about the relationship between the Sangh and the BJP.
So who is leading whom? Is Prime Minister Modi leading Mr. Hosabale and the Sangh, or is it Mr. Hosabale and Mohan Bhagwatji leading the BJP? How does it work?
I would put it in the Sangh terminology, Sangatchatvam. Let's walk together. Let's speak together. So these are, see, the point is that they want a synergy and they feel they now have the opportunity. So Team Modi needed a more dynamic, forward-looking, appealing figure. And when you speak about knowing many languages, most Sangh Pracharaks know many languages. And Dattaji also knows Sanskrit, by the way. So that's not what's new. I think what's going on now is that they feel that they've reached a critical mass. The time has come for a better synergy. And look at the two resolutions. One is about COVID, uniting against COVID, and the other is uniting around the Ram Janmabhoomi. So both these, and again, I don't think Dattaji, see what he said about things like love jihad. So
you mentioned love jihad, Makarand. Explain to me how the Sangh looks at that.
Exactly. See, the point is conversion through inducement, blandishment, deception, or whatever means is not going to be looked at favorably by whoever it is in the Sangh. See, the point is there are there's two ways to understand conversion. Which is one is you get denationalized. That is absolutely, I wouldn't even say de-Hinduized, you want to say de-Sindhuized. You can't, that would be inimical to the broader cause.
De-Sindhuized, what does that mean?
See, Sindhu is the root from which Hindu comes, because Hindu is the name that Persians and others gave us because Sir becomes her, Saptah becomes Hafta. So the idea is that there is an ancient civilizational unity, which is as old as the Rig Veda, which is mentioned as the Sapta Sindhu. It's not a modern invention. It's not what foreigners called us. The moment you cross the Indus, you're in a different place, regardless of what your religion is. So the point is that anything that takes you away from this identity and makes you what I would call non-Sanatani. Even non-Sanatani is okay, but anti-Sanatani is where you draw the line because it deracinates you, takes you away from your identity.
The whole idea of Hinduism is that it's more than a sum of its many, many parts. I mean, you can be Sanatani, you can be Arya Samaji, you can be atheist, you can do what you want. I mean, Savarkar was an atheist, wasn't he?
Exactly. So my point is that's precisely the idea. In fact, you know, what I was told by some people I was talking to, very high up people in the Sangh, they said Hindutva is a broader category than Hinduism. They said Hinduism is a Western invention because ism is not something that we Hindus use. And the tattva, they see tattva as foundational ideas like karma, dharma,
So to
whatever.
come back to the conversion question, yes.
Yeah, so conversion is obviously not looked at favorably. FCRA rules are being looked at so that the funding of conversion, I mean, in the last 4 years, 50,000 crores plus of money came in. In the last year, very little amounts came in, probably because of COVID. And they believe, and probably it's true, that a good chunk of this money is used for evangelical activities in one guise or the other. And that's not something they take kindly to.
So Makarand, let me ask you, what is the relationship between Prime Minister Modi and the Sangh all about?
Yes, so it's not a simple relationship. It's gone through phases. You know, his mentor was Mr. Inamdar, who was from the Sangh. He, in a sense, raised him, he brought him out. And I suppose when Keshubhai Patel couldn't deliver in the Bhuj earthquake, Modi ji was brought in, and there was a lot of controversy because sometimes it was felt that he was not listening to the RSS. But the real point I was trying to make is there's a book that has come out, and it says that the earlier Sir Sangachalak ji, Sudarshan ji's relationship with Modi, Prime Minister Modi, was not, at that time he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, was not all that cordial. When the time came to back their prime ministerial candidate, they realized that it was Modi as PM who could lead the BJP to victory. And the top echelons of RSS, as I understand it, agreed with this interpretation. And they went behind him 100%. So the point is that it's the great thing, I think Badriji said, that basically the Sangh never lets go of its own. They have a process of conciliation, discussion, and even if people go into the sulk mode, they don't break ties. Sambandh nahi todte. You asked me about Ram Madhav ji. I must tell you that it's my view that he's one of the most, I think, talented and, should I say, gifted strategic thinkers and very deeply read. He understands issues. For whatever reason, he's gone back to the Sangh. So the Sangh has the capacity to reabsorb, deploy and reabsorb. And there's something to be said because Govindacharya, as far as I know, didn't go back to the Sangh. So I believe that we shouldn't be surprised if there's a second innings for a man of his capacities and talents. And I think, therefore, we have to see the Sangh Parivar and its internal differences, not as we do the squabbles in other parties, including, let's say, this, Shiromani Akali Dal, they've gone over to the other side. Look at Lalu's party. Every party they break up. In the Sangh, there may be distancing, there may be some coldness, but they don't usually break up.
Right. Badriji, you wanted to come in here.
I wanted to say about this relationship between Sangh and BJP, especially in the context of Modi ji. You remember when Modi ji candidature was announced for the prime ministership, and there was a lot of discussion within the party, BJP party, and the Sangh played a very important role in that to create consensus. And Mohan Bhagwat ji went to the Advani ji, and so they as a family, they want to keep together. And Sangh, this is the very peculiar role of the Sangh in organizing BJP politics. BJP, politics of BJP in organizing BJP. So whenever the crisis come within the party, Sangh appear to resolve the crisis. So Sangh ka is a very important role Sangh plays in the BJP.
आज की तारीख में मकरंद ये बताइए, what is the relationship like today between Prime Minister Modi and the Sangh? Is it still as fraught as it was when he was Chief Minister?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody has been onboarded to this bigger mission, the mission of the new India or India at 75 and so forth. See, the thing I wanted to say is that the relationship between the Sangh and the BJP is an umbilical relationship. Please remember that even the predecessor, the Janasangh, was created because 4 people were sent by Guruji, Golwalkarji, to create this organization called the Janasangh. They merged, became the Janata Party, and then they were abused and upbraided and actually branded for dual membership. Raj Narayan raised that bogie. Janata Party broke up. You know what its fragments, or should I say remnants, look like today. The Sangh regrouped, created the Bharatiya Janata Party. So this relationship is umbilical, and let's not have any confusion about it. But the only thing I want to say, the Sangh regards its role or its mission as not just handling, mentoring, helping, suggesting to the BJP. No, they see BJP as only one of their many components. So maybe the primary one, because without power you can't do anything.
Right.
Make no mistake, for the Sangh, their agenda is very wide-ranging. BJP is one of their stakeholders, but there are many.
Thank you so much, Professor Makarand Paranjape of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies in Shimla and Professor Badri Narayan in Allahabad. Thank you so much for joining the Print Debates.